success is dancing. What does that mean? It just means that things fall into place without as much effort as we've been putting in. So if you haven't done the work to redesign your brain to skew positive, then it's just going to be so much energy all day long doing these things. Fear is one of the greatest ways that we sabotage ourselves. Quit freaking dabbling. Go deeper in mastery. Really become the expert.
Hey everyone, welcome to Flow Over Fear. My guest today is Kelly Resendez. She is the co-founder of GoBundance Women. She's also an executive at Good Leap, an author of books including Big Voices. She's a speaker. She does a lot of things, and it's amazing. This was a great conversation, and you have probably heard me talk about on this podcast the men's mastermind GoBundance. Well, they also have a women's group that Kelly is the co-founder of. And it is, and I called it on this episode that I believe that GoBundance Women is going to be one of the single greatest resources and the greatest mastermind for women on this planet. And it's an incredible group. I know a lot of the women in there, and it's just an amazing, amazing resource and connection and community for women entrepreneurs and business leaders who are looking to grow. And we talked about a lot in this call, not just GoBundance Women, but we talked about the idea of an abundance mindset and how it can shift our entire perspective on life, and how it changed Kelly's life from working in a job that was, lucrative, but that her heart wasn't necessarily in, to moving into an entrepreneurial life where she began to work for a company that was providing green energy and changing the world and helping communities find clean water. It's an amazing company that she's a part of, and also writing books, speaking on stages, founding GoBundance, helping women succeed. Truly changing the world. And you're going to learn a lot from this episode, from the power of an abundance mindset to how to develop mastery in the places that you want to build mastery in, and how to shift your focus into your passions and get rid of that dreaded self-sabotage or people-pleasing instinct and live your best life. So please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with the co-founder of GoBundance Women and an all-around amazing woman, Kelly Resendez. Hello, Kelly. Welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to have you here.
Absolutely, Adam. I'm excited to be here too.
Yeah, I mean, you do a lot. I mean, I can relate a lot to your story. I've heard a lot of your podcasts and your story. You're an author. You've written books. You've started GoBundance Women, and you have, you're an executive. You're doing a lot of things, and I see you everywhere on podcasts and just delivering these good messages. I guess my first question is, how do you do it all? Knowing that there's this thing that we maybe as achievers have, which is we want to do everything, but we struggle to find that balance.
Yeah.
And I know it's a big question, but how do you do it all?
Absolutely. The first thing that I would tell you is that I really live my life by my priorities. Mm-hmm. And one of my greatest priorities in my life is my physical and emotional well-being. And what I've found is that when I live for my purpose, which is truly just to help people increase joy and reduce self-suffering, that it feeds me and the energy that I have to do all of the other things. And so that's the one thing that I've really just done. And, I am masterful at saying no. I'm masterful at delegating and really just being able to, choose the things that are going to have the greatest impact in our businesses. And so it's just one of those things that, I love, helping other people. And so, instead of taking a lunch break or doing things like that, I might pop on and do a podcast appearance, and it creates that energy that I need to be able to finish out my day strong.
That's such a great starting point, and thank you for sharing all that, because you basically just set the agenda for this for this conversation.
Awesome.
Because I would venture a guess that that the physical, emotional well-being, being masterful at saying no, masterful at delegating. I'm almost certain that if you've shared the journey of many entrepreneurs, that it wasn't always like that. Was
Oh,
there a time in your life where you just struggled with all of
no.
that? Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, so I started my personal growth and development journey about 20 years ago. And, it's always an adventure. You think you're conscious one day, and then the next day you look back and you're like, oh, wow, I had a lot of work to do still. But it has definitely been a constant, journey. And when I really just started to look at like life is so precious. Like we take for granted the minutes, the hours, the days, and all of the little things that you can be doing that really create that extraordinary life for you. I had to just look at how I was spending my time, and being somebody that, I ran a very successful team in the mortgage industry, and I was a control freak. I was someone that wanted, even though I had other people doing things, it was inspection and making sure that all of the things were there, until I really recognized and realized, like, no one's ever going to do it the same way I am. I'm humble enough to say that they might do it better. Most of us think no one can ever do anything as good as I can. Well, when you just replace that with the same, right? We're two different people. We might get to the same place differently, but we're still going to get to the same place. I might be faster, they might be slower, but might be better for it to be slower. And so really just relinquishing a lot of that, and then practicing what I kind of call the law of detachment along the way, which is, if you look at the law of detachment, it's a Deepak Chopra, law that he wrote in the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, was that, it was something that really resonated with me, was that in detachment and in uncertainty, like the universe dances. And when you think about that, because I'm a pretty type A person, I was like, the universe is dancing. What does that mean? It just means that things fall into place without as much effort as we've been putting in. So, I truly believe that, in this journey on my own, it's been constantly letting go. And then when I think I can't let go anymore, just letting go and knowing that, man, I'm going to attract all of the goodness and opportunities in the world that I need to, without having to like grind it out and get there.
Yeah, that's so powerful, because it's really hard to let go of control a lot of times, especially when you're pursuing things that you want to achieve. You want things to fall in place the way you want them.
Or when you're a productivity addict, like we talk about addicts, right? We talk about people that have challenges with, things that aren't good for them, drugs, food, all of the things. We don't rarely like talk about the productivity addicts that are out there, like the people that can't let go. They can't even relax because they're not doing something. That's still an addiction. And it's one that, really feeds a lot of emotion. We get a lot of dopamine from staying at that pace, but we also get burnt out. We get disease, we get stress. There's a lot of unintended consequences that come along with that. And so I have been in recovery, from the productivity addiction, from the people pleasing addiction, the perfectionism, quite a few things. I do relapse every once in a while, but it's one of those things that, we don't give people a hard time for those, but they're just as, painful for the person that's in it, because you lose out on fun, adventure, connection, a lot of other things that can bring you so much more value in your life.
Now, I love that you're kind of how you frame that. And was there a catalyzing event that kind of led you to change from that, to send you into recovery? I mean, for a lot of us addicts, I'm an alcoholic. I'm also fall into the camp of the workaholic that you're talking about, the productivity addict. Was there an event that triggered you to seek out the recovery or the change in your life?
Absolutely. Well, I kind of call it the trifecta that happened in my life back in the early 2000s. I had a mom who I'm blessed. Like, I am so blessed. My parents were both entrepreneurs and they were real estate investors. So I kind of hit the grand, like fupa of like how to have an abundance mindset. My parents never lacked for anything and always created opportunity for me to see the things that they were doing, But with that being said, my mom was a workaholic and at age 57 got diagnosed with dementia. So never got to enjoy retirement because it went from selling the businesses to diapers. And so it was just such a catastrophic shift in what happened in our world that really started down the path of like me just going, man, am I going to be the same as her? You know, I didn't really know a lot about her dementia at that time. I didn't know of it. Is it genetic? And when you have that, you know, idea of like, man, I thought I would live forever to, oh, what if I get the same thing? I don't have that much longer. And then my grandma, who was like the, you know, just the angel in my life. I mean, I think she's probably a saint, but she went quickly from cancer, like months. And so that was just one of those things. And then quite shortly after that, I had my daughter, and that was in 2003. But while I was, you know, in that space, I started to recognize like, man, I am really not happy. Like as much as I had success, you know, living in a, you know, mansion, having a, you know, second home on the beach, having a lot of financial success, I didn't feel good in my body. I didn't feel good when I, you know, was just kind of sitting in silence, right? Like that's when you really know, like, am I feeling blessed or am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling like my brain's overthinking? And that started me down the path. And somebody recommended the book Power of Now to me, and that completely changed my world because I
Was
didn't
that
have,
Eckhart Tolle?
yeah. I didn't even know what being present meant. Like I would have thought it was a gift. Right. And so it was recognizing like, oh my gosh, like all these thoughts that I've been having that I thought was really who I was, they're just thoughts and I don't have to listen to them and they don't have to come along this journey with me. I can silence them a little bit in the background and still be able to move on. And so that took me down a wild ride of like, really going deeper in the spiritual world and then swinging back to the neuroscience aspect of things and doing a psychology program and really just understanding, you know, human beings on a deeper level so that I could not only heal some of the challenges that I was having, but I could also share, you know, that journey with others too.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I'm certain a lot of people struggle with. And I know I struggle with it too. This idea of being attached to our thoughts. I still struggle with that, you know. How are you? I mean, you did a lot of learning on that. You dove into the rabbit hole and went deep.
Yes.
How what's some like initial advice you would give people who are struggling with that, who are just attached, to maybe detach from their thoughts and realize that it's not really them?
Yeah. So the first thing that we have to be aware of is like thoughts come from our brain. Mm-hmm. So recognizing that you are not your brain, like that's the biggest thing. Like I look at my brain the same way that I look at my iPhone, right? Mm-hmm. It is just separate. Sometimes it doesn't work the way that I want it to. And sometimes I just need to learn how to turn it off. And so that has been one of the most powerful things is really understanding and being able to see it. Because rather than just like experiencing something, I can be like, oh my gosh, my amygdala just got hijacked. Like, what is going on? What are some of the things that I can do? Or wow, I've spent so much time in my left brain today. No wonder why I'm fatigued. I haven't spent any time on creativity or connection, which is my right brain. And so just taking a little bit of time to learn about your brain and the different areas. You don't have to be a scientist, master, but you can get an idea of like, you do have two sides to your brain. This is what this does. This is what that does. And then really, where does emotion come from? And why do we have this fight or flight? And so when we see the brain as just a danger preventing machine, it's constantly trying to create stories from the past to predict the future. And it goes rogue a lot. And then when you see like our addictions, like where do addictions fall? Why are so many people addicted to sugar? Why does iPhone know exactly what we need next? Because they understand brain health, and I don't want anyone to show me what my life's going to look like. So I really, you gain a lot of power in understanding it. And, again, you don't have to go that deep just to understand, like, I'm not my thoughts. If I can find a way to see them as separate from who I am, and there's all different ways to do it, right? In Untethered Soul, he talks about it being like your roommate, where you're like, I'm going to eat healthy today, Adam. And he shows up and is like, hey, I've got a pepperoni pizza. And you're like, oh, okay, it's right in front of me. This is what I'm going to do. That's what happens to us all day. Like no one wakes up with the intention, like I am going to have a completely mediocre day and I'm going to have zero deep conversations. I'm not going to make an impact in anybody's life. And I'm going to make choices that don't align with my long-term goals, right?
Yeah.
No one wakes up to do that, but we're not prepared for all the distractions that life brings us. We're not prepared for all the emotional triggers because we're all filtering, right? And if your filtering system, it skews just a little negative, which it comes that way. So if you haven't done the work to redesign your brain to skew positive, then it's just going to be so much energy all day long doing these things. So what I say is use strategy. Like use strategy. I have a thought management strategy that I teach people. And there's all sorts of other strategies out there. I love The Work by Byron Katie is an awesome strategy for the way that you do things. There's all sorts while you're doing some of the deeper healing, which most of us, if you really think about it, have to reparent ourselves. Like we really do. Like I love my parents, but there's a lot of programming that I accidentally picked up that still can have an impact on me. And the more work I do in deep meditation or whatnot to like try to find the roots of some of these things and really release them, it does help with the overthinking and the choices that don't align with what you really want in your life.
Yeah. Well, that's such an important perspective of parenthood too, is, and childhood is, you mentioned that you picked up a lot of things from your parents, even though they were wonderful people. I had the same experience. I had wonderful parents but still there's things that we pick up that, that are maybe a little too traumatic for us or challenge for us. And one of the greatest books I've read recently is Adult Children of Emotionally Insecure Parents. And it's, the name sounds kind of like intimidating, like, oh no, but my parents are great. Yeah. Yes. But it's also a great self-awareness book for us too, on like where we might be picking up some things from others or becoming maybe a little bit insecure ourselves or immature. Sorry, that it wasn't insecure, it was immature, but where we might be picking that stuff up. So I feel like a lot of that comes from the self-awareness, which starts with the education that you went through.
Yeah. Well, and it totally does. And like, when you talk about parenting, I studied conscious parenting, Dr. Shefali has been one of my greatest teachers in my life. And when I look at it, it's like, I still screwed up regularly, even though I put so much energy and effort into it. My greatest issue that I had with my daughter was just asking like, what's wrong? I didn't allow her to, like my idea is that everyone should be freaking joyful all the time. Well, you take a teenager with hormones and, they don't really want to go to school. I mean, who really wants to go to school, right? They're having to do a bunch of stuff that everyone expects them to do. They're not really getting to do what they want, and they've got all these rules. Of course, they're going to have ups and downs, but I was constantly like, what's wrong? Well, I'm not realizing like I was teaching her something's wrong with you. Like you're not the way that I want you to be. And so there's little things like no matter what, we're going to screw our kids up, right? There's going to be something. There's going to be something, I use humor with it all the time. Like, I would tell my kids they're grown now, but just like, don't worry, I've got your therapy fund already for when you want to start blaming me for all the things in your life that aren't going right. Right. And so the greatest gift that we can all give ourselves when we look at our life today is just the belief that our parents did the best that they could. And in spite of that, I'm still going to do the work. It doesn't mean that they were bad parents. A lot of people don't want to do the work and say like, yeah, my dad was this way. And as a result, I might, I might have trust issues or I might have abandonment issues or any of these things because they don't want to say their dad was bad. And it's like, that's not what it's doing. But we all carry generations of, challenges along the way. And part of this path is like coming full circle to full authenticity of like,
Yeah.
and I'm still fully authentic. I hit Control Alt Delete on all the beliefs, like took them all, said, I'm going to create the life that I want. And I'm going to start with 0 beliefs so that I don't accidentally overlay something that's going to hold me back from creating miracles in my life. And that's what I recommend to most people.
I love that. That's beautiful. You mentioned that a thought management strategy that you have, that you share with people. Can you bullet point that? Can I talk with how you go through that?
Absolutely. So the first thing that I would do is that you got to separate your highest, most authentic thoughts from the ones that, are not coming from that are probably coming from ego or false self or someplace else. So, I call it my big voice or my highest. And then I call it my little voice. You can name it whatever you want. Some people find it powerful to, name it like your childhood nemesis or, Dr. Jekyll. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It is not your highest self. It is the place of wounding that shows up, or insecurity or anxiousness or whatever any of those things are. And then really take some time, take that piece of paper, divide it in half and start writing some of these thoughts. Because when you think about like fear or doubt or lack of confidence, they really are just thoughts. They're not states. So when you really just, people are going to make fun of me if I start speaking. People are going to, for me, if I shift my whole career, everyone's going to wonder what I'm doing. Well, who the fuck cares? Sorry, I'm probably not supposed to cuss on here, but you take that part out. But like, who really cares? Like, that is not my highest self. My highest self says I only am living for myself and trusting that because I'm so good and pure and kind and full of love, that it's going to make a massive impact to other people around me, or at least not make a negative impact. And so when you start writing down these things, what you can do is, like keep focusing on the bigger voice ones when they show up and understanding what it is. Cause it's like, in GoBundance, when we sit down and we do our goals, you call it a one sheet, I call it a map. When we do our goals, like, and you're in that state, right? Where you're like, I know exactly, I have total clarity on what I want to do. And then a month goes by and I might not feel as motivated and I might not be taking those steps. Like, your little voice is starting to guide you because your highest self is like, nothing's going to stand in my way. And so you've got to just detail out these thoughts. And when you look at your little voice and you leave space, the greatest thing that you can do is to leave space and breathe. Because when you do, you tap into the whole, intelligence of your brain. You'll start to see like, oh, that's just a thought. Is that, now I'm sorting and sorting them like I do laundry. Is it a good thought? Is it a bad thought? Is it a thought? Maybe, maybe that I should look at that one. It keeps coming up a lot. Maybe I do need a career change, or maybe I do need to end my relationship or whatnot. And so you can start to be able to use this strategy to just sort and qualify your thoughts instead of following everyone. Because we know when you think a thought too much, your brain's going to ruminate. Like, that's the one thing that I can tell you. No matter what, every one of us has a brain that ruminates. Like, start to ruminate on things that you tell it. So look at your big voice thoughts over and over, make them into affirmations, visualize yourself in those states so that it just becomes more inherent to what you're thinking. And I do this with, gratitude practices, with, changing my language around, how I describe my life or how I want to feel, instead of just using words like good or busy. It's just like, we can really up level them too, so that our brain starts to produce more powerful thoughts for us.
Yeah. How do you incorporate that in your daily practice? Is it journaling? Is it just waking up, morning practice?
The whole shebang in the morning. I'm a, 365 days out of the year morning ritual person. So I'm very faith-based. I read a devotional first. I read the Bible every day. I look at my vision for how I want to feel, my goals. I look at my bucket list every single day, and then I journal, and then I meditate, and I keep it in front of me because you just never know. Like, whether you believe in manifestation or you're a neuroscience junkie like me, which is just the opportunities have been there all along. You just were too busy to see them kind of thing,
Yes.
and attracting opportunity. And so when you put yourself in that state, like magic happens. Then it's like, oh my gosh, now I'm at a point where I can think about somebody. I don't even have to reach out to them. Like chances are they're going to text or call within the next day and I'm good. Like everything happens with such ease because I put myself first in the mornings and I'm really clear about where I want to go with that day. And so this is what I would say. I'm not sacrificing, doing the work that I do here at Goodly or at GoBundance Women. I'm not sacrificing it. So it's not like I need to wake up, grind, and check my email. Like I'm really literally just putting myself at the highest vibration that I can to be able to make the greatest impact and speak my truth and do the things that I need to do.
Hey everyone, I interrupt this program to introduce you to a powerful tool that will help you gain clarity on your vision and accelerate your growth and achievement. If you're listening to this show, it is likely that you have an exciting vision for your life. But the problem is that we often get caught up in the day-to-day. We get distracted, we face uncertainty, overwhelm, and self-doubt. And as a result, the gap between where you are and where you want to be seems insurmountable. And that's why I created a framework for how you can turn your vision into strategic, disciplined action that will accelerate your results in the next 90 days. I call it the Vision Reflection Retreat. It is a 2-day solo excursion designed to reignite passion and adventure into your busy life and realign your focus toward your why. This is the very same framework that I use every 90 days to reflect on my own life and my vision and set my goals for the next quarter. And it has been a game changer. And the good news is that I'm giving away this Vision Reflection Retreat guidebook for free when you sign up for my newsletter. Simply go to flowoverfear.com/retreat and download your free guide and enjoy the journey.
Yeah. And that's so important. And thank you for sharing that, because the morning routine, whatever you make of it, whatever positivity you bring to that morning is so important, because the world is going to hit you throughout the day. It's going to hit you. There are things that are outside of your control.
No matter what.
That's going to be the bigger. Yeah. Right.
And like people think, oh, you're so great because nothing bad ever happens to you. And it's like, let me show you my laundry list of what's bad that's happened to me in the last 30 days. You would take your list any day over mine. The way that I respond, the way that I have an outlook on things is just so much different. And that's where the belief system, I really speak and coach a lot on an abundance mindset, and people are like, but what is mindset? I mean, you're wearing dark glasses, and basically blinded by amazing things if you don't have one. It's just your brain will not see what it sees if you tell it to focus on what it really should. And so it's such a powerful practice to really, remind your brain every single day. And people will say why are you a public speaker? And I love speaking and sharing this, but the level of accountability, I am talking to my brain every time I'm on a podcast, every time I take the stage, every time I'm doing, a masterclass or anything. I'm hearing myself speak over and over and over. And so when I'm in a situation where I have an opportunity to react or respond, I have so much built up on, well, everything's always working out okay for me, that it takes a nanosecond, where years ago it might take days to get through something.
Yeah. I'm curious, because you mentioned you had an abundance mindset that you were raised with your parents, with their actions, you had that already pretty much imprinted in you. And
I would say I had abundance from a financial aspect, but there was a lot missing. Some of the beliefs that my parents, they were complainers. I love my parents, but they were definitely people that complained or focused on things that weren't great. So, but there was a lot of gifts from especially the financial side in there.
I gotcha. Okay. So the mindset, the abundance mindset wasn't necessarily there until later.
Yeah, for sure.
And so once you had, your first child in 2003, was it?
Yeah.
How quickly, or how what was the process of change like from, did you, because I know you went from the mortgage industry, you work as an executive and you're doing all of these things. How was that shift where you could still have this life of abundance or start to develop that life of abundance?
Absolutely.
And focus on the family?
Yeah. I mean, the great news is that I had already created a lot of this mindset when the market shifted. So being in mortgage in 2008 for most people was like a visceral, like horrible
what
experience.
Happened in 2008?
Right? Yeah. I mean, our entire economic market crash. Right. We were so opportunistic that I was like, if everyone needs to have a pity party for a day, go do it. Like, it's time to find the silver lining in this market. Who do we need to be? That's my question always in any situation. It's like, who do I need to be in order to make happen what, my vision is? And we did. I mean, and we absolutely dominated in that market because we became the go-to short sale and REO lending team in all of Northern California. It was just everyone that was in REO knew exactly who we were and what we did. And they knew like we were going to take care of people. But as I was going through that, I would say the first thing that I did, and I know Tony Robbins has this in a lot of his stuff, and I kind of look back on it. I'm like, man, I didn't even know about that pyramid then, but it's what I did. I really got my physical well-being in check. I started to study, like, why do we get dementia and Alzheimer's and cancer? I had all those things. And then my sister has mental illness as well. And so I was like, I am going to be the most powerful health person that's out there. I wanted to know everything. So I got that in check and then just started to move above, into different places. And I still held on to a role in mortgage, which I didn't love. And I knew that I knew I wanted more, but what I started to do was speak more. And so that's what kept me going. I spoke once or twice a month. I was able to impact, hundreds and hundreds of loan officers in the industry and real estate agents, and just kind of kept doing that until I finally had this opportunity with GoodLeap, which was, just a local company that was ready to scale. And the CEO, I'm so grateful. He was raised by a single mom. And at that time, I was already a single mom. And I was like, listen, I want to do this, but I also want to make a huge impact in the female leadership role. I want to write books. I want to do all of these things. And he's like, that's amazing. Let's go. And here we are 13 years later. And that was really that transition, was that, number one, I had to find people that were passionate about the same things as me. We're one of the largest green energy financing companies out there. We're changing the earth, which is an important mission too. But we also are in a place where we give back at a high level. Part of being in abundance is contributing. So our nonprofit, we have over 1 million people today that have clean water because of our water desalination plants at Give Power. GivePower.org, amazing organization that absolutely, whether we bring solar power into schools, one of the greatest videos you can check out, Mr. Beast went on one of our treks with us and built a solar farm with us in Nepal, which was amazing. And it's, we just have been in this place where, the prosperity comes because we're driven by purpose. And that is one of our values. And I've pulled that through in every area of my life. And that's honestly how GoBundance Women came, was that I was doing this. And as much as I loved what I was doing, I was so lonely. Like, I didn't have anyone else that was like, I want to climb to the top of the mountain too. Like, I love all of the people that are in my life, but I definitely am ambitious and want to change the world, right? That's not everybody has that same desire or blueprint, which it's not wrong or right. It just is who I think I was kind of born this way. I was like, what game do you want to play? I want to play boss. Well, who's the boss? I'm going to be the boss. That was my childhood. And so that was how we created GoBundance Women, was just finding out that, there was a men's organization. Matty A and I have been friends forever. I'm sure you know him, and he's been in the men's group. And so just had conversations with them. And then we launched the women's group. And for myself, it's been like, oh my gosh, it's exactly, it's what I needed to round out, my career. was having like-minded women that were like, man, I also need to be around people that are ambitious, and don't ask like, well, how are you going to do that? Like how do you do it all? They're going to ask, how can I help you? Like, who can I introduce you to? Who's the next? That's how we met. Somebody introduced me to you. And so it's like, that's the way that, I would say that next level thinking is like, you have to surround yourself with the people that are going to support you, and you need to articulate exactly what they can help you with.
Yeah. And we were getting injected with very powerful vitamins when we met. That was right.
Yes,
you remember that?
We were. That was amazing.
Yeah. That's the incredible thing about that community of GoBundance. It's just, I want to get into the GoBundance side of it, because that's a big deal. But I do want to highlight something really powerful about that story you just told is this abundance mindset, where that brought you to. And I don't want to simplify it too much, because I know that I'd imagine that there was a lot of, personal challenge and hardship and difficult decisions and all of that, but you were in a role of, doing really well with in the mortgage industry, making a lot of money. Maybe you weren't that happy.
Like we were like, everyone was like, what are you doing when I made this decision? So
yeah. And so your heart wasn't necessarily fully in it, and you had it somewhere else, and you made these moves into new roles, speaking and into a new company that's changing the world, that's bringing power to people, that's creating opportunities for people, that's bringing water to people that wouldn't have had it, and then you create an organization with that is designed out of a need that you had, but you recognize that other people had too, which was connection, community with other entrepreneurs, people that wanted to lift themselves up, specifically for women who wanted to lift each other up in this community. The power of that mindset that you had, it's amazing. I just want to give you props for that. That's incredible.
Well, thank you. It's been, when you dive into like self-awareness and really start to look at like, okay, if I'm not waking up blessed and going to sleep blessed, like I'm actually stuck. Like,
yes,
to really face the truth of that. And that's one thing that's just really been coming up for me a lot lately is like, what truth are you not willing to face? Like, what decision do you need to make that you're just afraid to make? And that's the part, like the fear is never going to go away. Fear is one of the greatest ways that we sabotage ourselves. It is little voice, 100%, unless you're in a dark alley with someone chasing you. We do have that intuitive fear that's in us, and we do have fight or flight because we needed that for survival. Like, failure doesn't affect your survival. And like, sometimes we do have to fail or go through challenging times to build resilience and confidence, and like seeing it in a way where you do get some support. I do group coaching in GoBundance Women, and people have that opportunity. And it's like, why would you wait until next week? Like, let's do it right now. I want you to pick up your phone, and I want you to, resign or do this or do that. Like, people wait. And the problem is they wait a lifetime, and then they live with regret. And it is just, it's too short. And I'm grateful that my mom got sick. I had, 10 years with her after that of just sitting in presence, because that's all she had, right? She didn't have words over a period of time. She didn't have anything other than just being present. And it's like, it was a gift in me recognizing that, we have to create joy. And if we aren't creating joy, like our brain's going to be creating anxiety and depression and, distraction and all of these other complicated emotions that get in the way of really living a blessed life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. That's it. And thank you for sharing all of that, and for sharing everything about, the transformation you make, what triggered that with your mom and all of that. It's hard to see somebody go through those health challenges and know how they came about, but if they influence a person like yourself to make those changes that you need to make, that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we all want to live like it's our last day, right? We never know. We never know what's coming. The thing is, it's like we accept crumbs. We accept just, well, I've got to stay in this place because I've got to pay the bills or whatnot. And it's like, you've got to have that trust fall that like everything's going to work out okay for you. And when you really are driven, from your purpose, it just makes a big impact.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about GoBundance Women a bit, because that is, there's, in addition to the mindset, the abundance mindset and everything, I think there's this other element that is so powerful. And I found it, 12 years ago when I got sober, and that elevated my life to getting into the communities that leveled up. Community is so valuable. And especially when you find the community of people that are aligned with what you want and are moving towards big things, that it lifts, a rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah.
Can you talk about GoBundance Women, why you started, how it started, and where you're going and what it's all about?
Absolutely. So, I always think it's a funny story, but it like started in a hotel room with a bunch of women and Mike McCarthy and John Bargoff. So that's where it started. I was like, I don't know how these two guys got here, but super grateful for their mentorship and leadership and just kind of helping us guide, this organization to where it is. And when you look at GoBundance Men, one of the greatest aspects that GoBundance Men brings is that connection, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of men don't have that connection. It's not innate to them. They have to be taught how to connect on some of these different, more vulnerable levels. And they've now found this space where we're with women, that's kind of innate for us. Right? Like we're all pretty good. Like that's just more of an innate part of who we are. And so we had to really figure out like who we wanted to be over the last several years. And so not only do you get connection, but you also get accountability and support in creating more in your life. We're constantly being asked and told like, well, how can you do that, with kids, or how can you do that? And it's like, why are we the ones that are asked that question? We've created an environment where it's like, hey, well, if you're still in your W-2 and you have a desire to do that, create an and like you can figure it out. Like we'll be creative and that kind of thing. And so what we really do in GoBundance Women is help, from a leadership support standpoint. You're put through an 8-week growth accelerator course, which I'm super passionate about. My ultimate goal in the world is to up-level female leadership. And it's not because I'm a feminist or whatnot. I just think we have a different balance that we bring to the table. We think about, the impact that things have across a broad market versus just what we're doing. One of my favorite analogies is that men are like waffles and women are like a bowl of spaghetti. They're like, oh, compartmentalize, make money right here. I'm not. But you know what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And we're women, like you touch one spaghetti and like every noodle is affected on the entire plate, right? Like we bring this essence to the table and to boardrooms and executive, rooms that you aren't going to get. Like diversity is where it's at moving forward. And when you look at the price that our children are paying for a lot of what's going on in the world, like we need more powerful women that are going to step up. So you get this course on really who you're being and how you're showing up in your role, whether it's you're a leader or business owner or investor. And then, we put you into pods similar to GoBundance Men, where you connect with 4 to 5 other women who kind of become your board of directors. And for myself, kind of like my best friends too. Yes. So I have different groups of friends. I have my high school best friends. I have some, post-college best friends and whatnot. And it's just another added layer to, the group of women that really support me on my journey. I was just in Chicago for Mandy, my business partner, wedding with quite a few of us. And it's amazing being in, just in proximity to amazing women like that. And so tons of micro tribes for different interests and whatnot. I always tell people it's like a buffet, right? You don't want to fill up on one thing. You want to try everything and then go deeper in certain areas. But what women can really expect is, number one, they're gonna have people to really support them when they've got big decisions or they're struggling with something. The majority of women, when I really dive into the differences in women and men when it comes to business, we experience stress at a much higher rate. We experience imposter syndrome at a much higher rate, and we cite more challenges with work-life balance. If I can help those women in those three areas, which I know that we can, like, it is going to make a big ripple effect, because I am not going to be a victim of what's going on in the business world. I believe we are just as responsible for not applying or not pushing or asking for what we need to get to the next level, that I really want to support women on that. Not to say that there aren't, old rules that need to be, reframed, but at the same time, like, we could spend all day trying to change already established businesses, or more women can go out there and build new businesses, right?
Amen.
I just say it's a lot faster. Go build some more businesses, ladies. Let my friend Cody Sanchez help you out. She's got a great new book out there right now, on that space of just teaching people how to build businesses. And I look at opportunity. We're in the home improvement and green energy financing space in solar. And it's like, man, like, so much opportunity in that space for women to go into. There's so many untapped markets that are really, just ripe for, more female leaders to go in and make a bigger impact.
Yeah. Well, you just answered my next question on that. And I appreciate that, because I was going to ask where are the best opportunities to, to improve with and starting out, like, actually being the entrepreneur for women. I think that's a powerful message to send forward. It's almost like just take out the middleman or middle person or middle, and just do it yourself. That's
absolutely
great advice. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, when you look at it, like, because we do, like, think differently. I don't want to be like you. You don't need to be like me, but I'm thinking about, and I used to, about the dentist appointment and the homework and did they pack their lunch and this and that and whatever it is. And it's like, I can't change that. Now, I think more women need to really articulate what they need from their partner so that they feel more supported and don't feel like they need to own all of those things so that they're stressed. But at the same time, like, flexibility can be amazing. And if you own your own company, you're going to have maximum flexibility, and maybe you want to travel and you want to do these other things, but, like, really just knowing that, like, you are the creator, like, decide what life you like. I love coming to the office every day. Like, I do. I don't want to work from home. Someone else might want to work from home. It's just up to you what you want your life to look like. And we're all uniquely different. And that's where you get a lot of power, but you can also get that same power when you create mastery in some area of your life, right? Like, the reason I am where I am, I created mastery in really building referrals and building business at scale in an industry that wasn't normally like that. And so that's where opportunities came to me. I still speak within the industry a lot, within the mortgage and real estate industry, because I made a name for myself. And that's the other thing that we need to do, is quit freaking dabbling. Like, go deeper in mastery, like, really become the expert. I hope that anyone that here, knows me is like, oh my gosh, she's a great abundance mindset speaker. Like, John Maxwell just heard me and told me I was one of the best in that, which was like,
really?
Oh my God, the greatest day ever for me. Right. And so it's like, but, like, what are you really known for? Like, how are people going to even recognize? Because you don't necessarily have to build your own company. You could find a company that is already established that you get some ownership in. There's so many possibilities. We have to ask, though. That is our greatest challenge, is that we aren't asking at the same level. We're waiting in comparison to men. So that's one of the greatest shifts that we have to make, is that, just get out there and do it. And if you need help with confidence and resilience, like, I'm your girl. Like, let's connect. And I can definitely do that, because sometimes we just need that voice right in our life.
Yeah. And that's so brilliant. And I love what you're doing to do that, supporting that through GoBundance Women, supporting women, building their own businesses, starting to build that so that it actually creates more opportunity for women to grow into leadership.
Absolutely.
So wonderful. Yeah. And It's just such a great message. And you've talked too about mastery. You just mentioned about mastery. You said you're a master of saying no, master of delegating. How are you finding, or how do you find what it is that you want to master,
Yeah.
or where's the
Oh my
combination
gosh. What a great question, Adam. Because again, we dabble. This is my recommendation. Do it by quarter. Pick one thing that you're going to go all in on. And like, when I mean all in, I listen to YouTube videos every single day. I read every single day. Like, it is a non-negotiable in my life, because I know that in order to be more relative in the influence world, right? I need to be well-rounded in that regard. So, you could start, if you're struggling, start at the foundation of like, how do I manage emotional triggers? Like, how do I build my emotional intelligence? How do I communicate more effectively? And then over time, you can add and layer in different things. So I've got a leadership tool that I use, which it's like, you really want to document like all the areas that you really want to focus on, and then find the ones that are going to be most impactful for you. And so, studying language, when I became a speaker and was really getting more paid for it many years ago, it was like, that's one of the greatest skills that you can have, is to be able to ignite emotion. Well, words ignite emotion. How you show up ignites emotion. How do you learn that as a skill? And so, even in GoBundance Women, we've got a public speaking course that comes with it too, because it's such an important part of mastery, is telling your story, whether it's to one person, 10, whether you're speaking to investors or an audience, like, it's still an important skill. So I would just really focus on what's going to make the biggest impact. And for everyone, it might be, you need to start working on yourself. Read the book Worthy. You need to start working on, overthinking. Read Untethered Solar Power of Now. You need to start, just start chipping away at those things that can make you from an inside out perspective. And then you can move on. Well, maybe your relationship is impacting other areas of your life. Well, maybe you need to dig deeper here, or you're really worried about finances and what's going on there in business or other areas. Just don't try to do too many things at once. Messages get diluted. That is the downside of social media, is there's so much coming in that you accidentally buy a bunch of stuff at Nordstrom's that you don't need to, because your mind's like, what? I don't, how did I just accidentally buy that pair of shoes, Adam? Like, I don't even know what happened, right? It's because we're so many different types of things are coming at us that we don't even know who we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to call it here that, I've met some of the, some amazing women in GoBundance, including yourself, Mandy, and introduced a few to your community. I've seen it grow over the last year or two, and it's been incredible to see that growth. And I'm going to call it that it is going to be one of the greatest, if not the most life-changing mastermind women's group in the world. 100%.
Yes.
And if people do want to join in now, as it starts to build up, where can they go?
Absolutely. So I've got two things for you. You could just go over to GoBundanceWomen.com and check it out. Tons of information on there about our events, our values, like what our pillars are, what we stand for. And you can go ahead and book a call with us and get more information. But I also have a great 3-part series for you to give your audience as a gift. You can go over to www.downloadthepod.com, and it's all on overcoming self-sabotage. And I really go through the top 3 ways that entrepreneurs sabotage their own success, and really walk you through some actionable things that you can do there, because it is so important. Like, most of us have a vision or an idea, right, of what we want our life to look like. And then you're like scratching your head like, well, then why do I keep sabotaging myself? Like, what is going on? Then that's where you really have to recognize that your subconscious mind is more powerful than you give it credit for. And unless you start to see it and know it and have some strategies to be able to overcome it, you won't get to that next level.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And that's very generous too, the gift that you're giving to get people into that. Downloadthepod.com. Is that the correct email?
Got it.
Excellent. Or website. That's great. And where can people find you, Kelly? Where would you, if they need a speaker, if they just want to reach out?
Just kellyresendez.com. So just www.kellyresendez.com. And I would love to chat with you and definitely support you in any way in your audience. So this has been so fun. I could just chat with you all day.
Yeah, me too. There's a lot of directions we can go, and you're doing so much good in the world. And it's just a great example of how, just shifting your mindset and having an abundance mindset can pull, and following your passion can drive you in the direction of changing the world, which you're doing, Kelly. And thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Adam.
Thanks, Kelly Resendez. Thank you so much. And to everybody out there, thanks for joining us. Check out where Kelly is. Go to kellyresendez.com and download the pod for her 3-part gift that she wants to give out to you. And go to GoBundance Women to learn more about an amazing mastermind for women. Thanks for joining us today. We will see you next time.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining me today on Flow Over Fear. If you are liking this show, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. That way you'll be first to know when I drop a new episode, including interviews or trainings or dad jokes. That's right, dad jokes. Add a little levity to your life. And if you liked this episode in particular and you think somebody can get something from it, please share it with a friend. And that way we'll spread the message together. Thanks again for joining me today. We'll see you next time.